Washington doesn't care about you. They're taking care of themselves and their friends.
Donald Trump is not a disease. He is the rash that exposes the sickness. He is the symptom of the sickness. He is the flame sparked by centuries of white fear and entitlement. And the truth is, the system was never broken. The system was built like this. Let's stop pretending that Trump is some accident in history. He is a mirror. He is a mirror that reflects what many have tried to deny. White supremacy is not on its deathbed. It is thrashing and fighting to survive. And Trump is the most desperate weapon.
I want to tell you that the most important thing to keep in mind is that we will get through this. However, it is not likely when we get to the point where we get through this to end well. On the other hand, as you will find, those of you who read this book, which is the sequel to my biography of Trump from 2 years ago, The Making of Donald Trump, Donald Trump is not the disease. He's the symptom. The disease is that we in America for decades now, and I would date this to the late 70s to early 80s, have been giving up democracy. In the 2016 election, close to 100 million people who were eligible to vote did not cast ballots. Young people, 18 to 21, whose parents and grandparents, like me, had sought the right to vote on the theory that, well, if you can draft us and kill us in Vietnam, we ought to have a right to vote, turned out in relatively low numbers. I suspect because of Parkland and the reaction of the students there, led by the students who take part in a national award-winning high school broadcast journalism program, that's about to change. But what we need to keep in mind is a simple, fundamental truth that we don't spend enough time thinking about and that we do not teach well in our schools, many of which no longer teach what those of us with gray hair remember to be in junior high school and high school civics. And that is the whole idea of the United States of America is that we choose our future. We've made a bad choice.
There is a white professor called David K Johnston once warned white America for against Donald Trump. And there's something he said on the video that it get me glued, and I watched to the end and I decided, you know what, I can't watch alone. I have to share it with my American friends. Now, he said this: Donald Trump is just a symptom of something big that's happening in America. It's just a symptom of a biggest disease that's happening in America. And I thought of something. What is happening in America right now? The empire is falling rapidly because of Trump. And there's a video I did that God of Black people is punishing America through Trump. This is just some sort of continuation about the video. I'll say this. First of all, grand rising to all of you who are watching this video. Peace, power, and purpose to every soul watching. I thank you for tuning in today because what we are about to discuss, it is bold and necessary. We dive into a warning that many ignored, but Black people too have been saying this. What I'm happy is that Black people always find a way to say things like this earlier back then, but to get ignored. I just want you to buckle up because I'm going to dive deep into this. But before I do that, I want you to watch this clip from this white professor, and then we come back here and we talk about it more and more.
Unless Donald Trump was in business with Joe Wexelbaum in drug trafficking, whereupon everything he did makes absolutely perfect sense. And it falls into the school of, Joe, I'll never rat you out. Don't worry. Just stick to your confession. Don't get me involved in this. I'll never rat you out. And I've said, if Donald Trump thinks that that's not true, I invite him to sue me. That's how firmly I think the evidence shows his conduct. Sue me. He certainly has a lot more resources than I do. Now, What's important, now that Donald Trump is the President of the United States, is frankly not the crazy tweets, the racist comments, the nuttiness going on in the White House, the chaos. What matters is what is not in the news and what I wrote this book to address. Team Trump has put into our government what I call political termites. And I call them political termites because, like wood termites, you don't see them eating away at the structure of your house until one morning you walk into the kitchen and boom, your foot goes through the floor. And you've got a huge bill to repair and fix the damage. Now, Donald didn't do this personally. Donald is lazy. The White House hasn't even disputed reports that he comes to work around 11:30 and leaves around 4, and that includes lunch. He wants to get back to watching himself on Fox. But the people whose names you haven't heard, and in many cases you're not likely to hear, are the people that are doing the damage to our government, who are eating away at our substance. People have been put into these departments with the express purpose of weakening and, if they can, destroying our government. At the Environmental Protection Agency, this is perhaps better known than other places, but in my book I tell the story of a senior EPA executive, someone you and I have invested a fortune in developing knowledge and skills and talents in a very sophisticated person. And when Scott Pruitt, the former Attorney General from fossil fuels, arrived as EPA director, he did a whole bunch of interesting things we've never seen before. First of all, they put locks on the outer doors of the EPA administrator's office. Secondly, if you were called or summoned to any of the executive offices, you were stopped by a security guard. You had to leave your cell phone or anything else that might be capable of recording a conversation, and you were then brought into the offices. All conversations were one-sided conversations. The woman whom I quote at length in the book had worked under 11 EPA administrators, and she said every single one of them, they would come by her office, or they would ring her up and say, hey, can you come to my office? I got a problem. And they would discuss, well, this industry or this company or this senator has some complaint, and how do we deal with this, and what do we do? And sometimes, Betsy was happy with the outcome, and sometimes she wasn't, but it was all based on the political realities of dealing with powerful people and what the law says. Not Scott Pruitt. He told her and her staff of people that you are to write highly detailed reports on every weakness in the Clean Water Act. If we bring any kind of case under the Clean Water Act, I want to know every single weakness. Now think about that for a minute. Who do you think is going to benefit from that? Do you think that it led to Scott Pruitt going to Congress and saying, we need to shore up the Clean Water Act that Richard Nixon signed in 1971? No, this was written to be a guide to polluters on how to defeat enforcement of the laws, even after this administration is gone. And the people at EPA, being good bureaucrats, did what they were told. They wrote these reports. They were summoned to a meeting. They were asked only very technical questions. What does that word mean? Or why is that word there rather than somewhere else? There was no feedback. And then all the paperwork, all the documentation was taken from them. They were told to eliminate everything that they had, and they were dismissed. These are not people fulfilling their oaths. These are people who are setting out to destroy our government. I want you to notice I always talk about our government. One of the worst things the news media does is refer to the government. Now, if you're the BBC, I expect you to refer to the US government as the government. But in America, I think we need to start talking in our personal conversations and our communications with others about our government. We own it. We need to act like owners. If we do that, we will take a much deeper interest in the policies of our government. One of the principal ideas of this government is compromise. Democracy is based on the notion of compromise. Now at Syracuse, where I'm not teaching this year, but I did for 8 years, I taught the law of the ancient world. One course was the property and tax law of the ancient world. The other was the business regulatory law of the ancient world. There's an enormous amount of business regulation in Hammurabi's Code, in the Old Testament, in Athenian law, in Roman law, in Egyptian law, Chinese law, Indian law, that I would teach my students because I was really teaching them, why is the law the way it is today? How did we get here? And is it arbitrary or is it based on human experience? Well, those laws, in many ways, are flawed, and I show flaws in them of all sorts of kinds, things that maybe at the time were not thought at all to be flaws, but we see today that they are as we learn new things and we acquire new things. And in the regulatory course, I would have my students 3 times spend their 3 hours together designing a regulatory system. The first time we would do one about steamboats, because after the first steamboat was crossing the Hudson River over here, other manufacturers got into it. Some of them weren't so good, and there were about 7,000 people who were scalded alive in various places across this country when badly made steam engines exploded. Well, how are we going to solve this problem? And I take the 20 or so students I have, and you're the guy who's selling it. You're the insurer. You're the banker. You're somebody standing on the dock to wave goodbye to your family because they're going to visit someone. All these different roles. And what the students the first time do is they realize they have no idea what they're doing. And then we do it a second time for the 1905 New York City dynamite law. You can't have construction in Manhattan, which is a big rock, without dynamite. They get better at it. And then we do it a third time, usually with securities laws. And by the third one, everybody has this deep appreciation that everybody else in the room has a legitimate interest and they're not the same. And you have to make compromises if you're going to have a successful regime where we can all live and get along together. That's not what's going on in this administration. This administration is the embodiment of the my way or the highway argument. And it is based largely on the whims of Donald Trump. Donald Trump, who I've known for 30 years, is not a man with any philosophy at all, except I am the greatest. And this is a guy who makes Muhammad Ali, the boxer, look modest. This is a man who doesn't literally know anything. He said he's going to make Mexico pay for a wall. And he repeatedly was asked, how are you going to make Mexico pay for the wall? It's a sovereign country. Oh, I have a plan. As soon as I get in office, I'm not going to give it away. So he gets in office, and what's his plan? He's going to put a tariff on Mexican goods, which means you and I pay for the wall through higher prices, not just on Mexican goods, but if it's a 20% tariff, we're going to pay 19% higher prices on American-made goods, because American companies can raise their prices just below the tariff level and expand their market share. Donald doesn't know this because he doesn't know what he's doing. Donald, I quote word for word from the book, him's arguing that he is the world's greatest expert of all time on taxes. Nobody knows more than Donald about taxes. Now, my next book is an entirely new tax system for the United States for the 21st century economy. It's a project I've spent more than a decade refining and developing and working out until now the experts in the field I take it to can't poke any holes in it. But Donald, under oath, has testified when he's asked, well, so what do you know about accounting? I don't know anything about accounting. Leave that to the accountants. Well, to claim you're an expert on taxes and then say you know nothing about taxes would be the equivalent of my standing up here and saying, you probably don't know that I am the world's greatest expert in all time on the design of airplanes. I am the greatest airplane designer ever born. What's a wing? That's how silly it is. And yet millions and millions of people believe Donald Trump is their savior. And they believe anybody who's opposed to him must be a horrible person. I get astonishing emails from people about why do I love Sharia law? You know, I mean, I've looked all over. I had my research assistant do all sorts of looking through Nexus. I said, please find me some American politician. I don't care if it's a city council person in you never heard of it, middle of Texas, who supports Sharia law, wants to go to Sharia, can't find them. It's not really a unicorn. It's more of a chimera. Well, we have to get along with this guy, like it or not. He's got his finger on the button. At the moment, he has a Secretary of Defense who I think it's become pretty clear by his actions is not going to let him use the button. An illegal order to use it is not going to happen. And by the way, just think for a moment about what would happen if Trump went through with his casual talk about killing everybody in North Korea. 25 million people, half the population of South Korea. People who are so poor, if you look at satellite images at night, all of Asia along the coast is lit up and there's this black hole. It's North Korea. The average annual income in North Korea is the equivalent of about 10 days' income here in North Jersey. That's how little people get by on. There's widespread malnutrition. There's the use of forced slave labor in fishing and mining in Russia and China to bring foreign currency back to this failed state that's a cult where you must express your personal loyalty to the leader or terrible things will happen to you. Where people who've escaped say that they were told that they were the wealthiest people in the world. And then they get to Seoul and they discover things like ice cream and big signs on the side of buildings. They can't believe it. If we were to do what Donald Trump casually said, just nuke off the face of the earth North Korea, we would become a pariah nation. Everybody would stop doing business with us. You know, you want to go on a vacation to Europe? I'm sorry, we don't allow Americans. We don't accept your passport. Or you'll have to go through a rigorous vetting process and get permission to come. What happened to the apartheid regime in South Africa that finally brought it to its knees under de Klerk? That would be a picnic compared to what would happen to us. Now, in the fall, I traveled around the world. I literally flew 51,000 actual air miles, lectured on 5 continents on 5 Fridays. And I was astonished everywhere I went about how uniform the reaction was to Donald Trump. And the basic reaction to people from high government officials that I met, journalists I met, academics, business leaders, down to chambermaids who I engaged in conversation, who were making up my room, was, what happened to your country? How could this happen? How could this crazy person be the president of the United States? What is wrong with you people? And they were all scared. They were all literally scared. Now, one of the things that Donald Trump promised is that he was the champion of the forgotten man. If you remember his inaugural address, the forgotten man will be forgotten no more. It took him about 5 minutes after he left the Capitol to forget the forgotten man. And in this book and in the news service that I run with my friends, it's a nonprofit, mostly volunteer project with a huge budget of about $6,000 a month, where we break story after story after story that sometimes we get the major news organizations to follow us, almost never with credit, is that he's actively going after the common man. It isn't just his, I'm going to drain the swamp, and then he stocks it with swamp monsters from Goldman Sachs. It's other things this government is doing. The first budget that Trump put forward proposed that for seniors who are between 60 and 90% disabled, veterans who are between 60 and 90% disabled, and who get treated as if they're fully disabled because basically employers don't want to hire you at that rate. And I know this because my father, I watched him after World War II go through progression until he became 100% disabled. And once he was at about 40%, nobody wants to hire you. He got hired because he was a very talented chef, but 65% or so, he couldn't work anymore. Well, Donald Trump's first budget proposed that when you reach early retirement age for Social Security, 62, that your annual income, which currently is about $35,000, be cut to $13,000. Literally plunging you into poverty. Nobody's going to take care of the veterans the way I will. Nobody. I'm going to take care of our veterans. Nobody's been taking care of them. Both parties. I'm going to take care of our veterans. Really? You're going to plunge them into poverty. Now, that's not going to happen. They dropped that because Congress said, we're not doing that. The most troglodyte members of Congress said, we're not doing that. But it's indicative of his attitude. He also proposed, by the way, and they're still working on this one in various ways, to round down all checks. So if your benefit is $3,000.99 a month, you'd lose the 99 cents. Now, it's not a lot of money. We're talking about a few $1 million in a $20 trillion economy, but the symbolism of it is overwhelming. Look at the Second Amendment. Donald Trump used to be against the kinds of weapons that are used to massacre our children. And let's not beat around the bush about it. That's what they're being used for, to massacre our children. And it is shocking to me that everybody isn't out in the streets demanding an end to this. Not just young people. We're going to find out, by the way, it's going to take you a long time to get this changed. Change does not come easily. Our government was designed to be resistant to change. The people who got these changes, they worked on it for decades. This shouldn't take decades, but it's not going to happen overnight either. Donald Trump, in every case that we have looked at dcreport.org, singular, dcreport.org, singular, his actions are inimical to the interests of ordinary Americans, inimical to the interests of the people he promised to champion. Now, where did Donald Trump get this idea that we need to drain the swamp and that Washington is taking care of itself and the political donor class at the expense of the vast majority of Americans? I know exactly where Donald got it. He got it from me. I've known Donald for 30 years. He and I have talked about these issues. I asked him one time, what do you think about healthcare as a business owner? And he said, healthcare should be just like the roads. When you need one, you just use it. You don't pay anything, you just go use it. Think about that in contrast to what he's proposing now to take away healthcare from 31 million people and enhance the power of the insurance companies. There's no moral principle here that applies to him. It's whatever is convenient in the moment. Donald very brilliantly took the message in my best-selling trilogy of books, which I know he watched me on television talk about for the 10-year period it took to write all three of them. Perfectly Legal, Free Lunch, and The Fine Print. And he talked to other people who, told me about these conversations where he was testing out these ideas that he was intrigued with about what I argued was, being not a marketing person like Donald, upward redistribution, stealth siphoning of money out of your pocket, and other terms like that. And Donald brilliantly distilled that into drain the swamp. Washington doesn't care about you. They're taking care of themselves and their friends.
Welcome back to the channel. I hope you loved the video. Now, let me say this. We all know Donald Trump didn't invent racism. Donald Trump did not build the systems that criminalize black people. It was even not there. Donald Trump did not create mass incarceration. But what Donald Trump did, or what he's doing, he is simply unmasking what was already there. He represents what is there. You get me? Trump was not a glitch in the system. He is the system. And that's why, and that's what this Professor David K Johnston was trying to say. If you are shocked by Trump, you have been ignoring American true history. If you are shocked by Trump, then you don't know about American history. And let me tell you, that's why black people are so quiet on these matters about Trump, these policies. Black people are not protesting because they know the history of America. You get all these other Mexicans, Latinos, they are coming out complaining, but black people are super cool. They are saying we are not going out because they know what is going on. So white supremacy has always needed a mascot. And in 2016, they chose Trump. But the mindset that existed long before him, from slave ships to lynching trees to police badges, it has always been about power over black life. So in 2016, they chose Trump. Again, right now, we have him here. And he is always representing what white supremacy is. I always say this. America didn't accidentally produce Donald Trump. He was chosen, he was manufactured, and he was groomed. The banks gave him loans, the media gave him platforms, the political parties gave him platforms, and white America gave him their votes. They call it Make America Great Again. And this is the reason, because Trump was the perfect expression of white anger after the black president. He represented revenge, not justice. That's according to me what I'm trying to say, not according to what Professor David K is saying. He gave them something to feel good about again, false priority. He gave the white America something to feel good again. According to Professor David K Johnston, he knew Trump for decades. And he said this, he lies all the time. He cheats people, he's dangerous. But what's worse is the system kept letting him. This professor, I've studied Donald Trump for so long. He has books that talks about Donald Trump. So what he's saying, I think it is something to do with the truth. But what this message is up to us is that Trump is white supremacy in a red hat. Don't be fooled by the suit. Don't. Trump is not new. Trump, he is an evolution of an old master. He told white Americans they were victims. He called black nations shitholes countries. If you remember that. He said Black Lives Matter is a terrorist group. He said white supremacists were very fine people. If I be clear here, I will say Trump is the modern Klan without the wood. Ku Klux. It's called Ku Klux. History is so hard, but I'm trying. Trump is a modern Klan without the wood. And millions loved him. Because for many white people, it wasn't about policy. It was about preserving the hierarchy. And the red MAGA hat, it was never about making America great again. It was about making whiteness supreme again. That is the truth. This professor is a prize-winning journalist, and he studied Trump for more than 30 years. He documented his scams, his racism, his corruption. He told Americans. He said this, I quote, "If you think Trump is bad, wait until you see what comes next. Wait until you see what comes next." Black people, you hear me? Americans didn't listen to that. They call it exaggeration, they call it bias, and some even call it unpatriotic. But black people knew the truth. That is where all the happiness is. Black people knew the truth. Black people weren't shocked because they have been living under this disease long before Trump walked down the podium. So, reality is, democracy is eroding right now. The courts are being attacked. Voting rights is being suppressed. Hate crimes are up. Teachers are banned from teaching the truth, from teaching the history. Even when you see black voices being attacked, it is normal. It was to happen. Trump did not cause all these things. He simply gave it permission. You understand me? He simply gave it permission. He blew the dog whistle into the foghorn. He brought white grievance out of hiding. He made it popular again to hate openly. That is the reality. I don't know if I'm right. If I'm wrong, tell me in the comment section. And now America is choking on its own lies. White America burns. Black people suffer the most. Black women still die at birth at alarming rates. Black children get punished more than any other group in schools. Black men hunted by police. Black power is feared. No, Trump era didn't create these wounds, but it ripped them wide open. But still at the end of this, black people always rise up. Black people always get a place. They get ways to rise up. And that's what is scaring the supremacy so much. And you know what? We cannot forget how media played a role. The same network now, shocked by Trump words, they gave him billions of free airtime back then because racism sells. Controversy brings clicks. White rage equals rating. CNN, Fox, all this media. Let's stop pretending that this was inevitable. They chose him, they platformed him, and now they act surprised. Black people knows all this game. Black people have been on this game for so long. So right now, I'll say this to every white person who wants to say, I'm not racist. Now, this is the time to prove. It's the time to prove that you are not racist, because you can't be against Trump but stay silent when your co-worker tells racist jokes. You can't be for equality but vote for people pushing voter suppression. You can't say Black Lives Matters but stay quiet when your church avoids the topic of race. You have to dismantle the system that made Trump possible. Otherwise, he will not be the last. Other one will come. This is a disease. Trump is just a symptom of this disease. And this disease has been there. This disease is there for so long. So, as black people, we didn't need a white professor to tell us this about Trump, because black people already knew this. They felt it. They knew. They warned everybody about what's going to happen. Tell me on the comment section. You black brothers and sisters, you warned people. I remember I did videos of black people warning others about Trump. It is evident. Internet never forgets. But black truth is often dismissed until it's too late and they start calling them up. So, right here, watching the empire drowning in its very waters, black people have been in this swimming pool for centuries, so they don't get panic. What black people are doing, they are building their own ships. So when the country drowns, they have ships. And these ships takes them direct to the motherland. Oh, hallelujah. It takes them direct to the motherland. You drown, you sink. America, just sink how you want to sink. Black people are building ships. It's a metaphor. It's a metaphor. I will say this. When I talk about this, I'm not talking just about Trump. This is about racist institution, police brutality, unfair housing, the criminalization of black people or black skin. We cannot just remove the man. We must remove the machine that made him. It is time to stop treating the symptoms, but we need to burn the roots. Truth is rising and lies is drowning. You can see it. Dr. or Professor David K. Johnston warned white America. Black people too warned white America. And now the warning is turning into flood. The system is cracking. The lies are collapsing. The empire is sinking because the God of black people is exposing everything right now. No more hiding behind flags. No more fake patriotism. No more pretending racism ended. We see the truth. We are the truth, and we are not going back. We are not going back. As I said, America was never a land of freedom for everyone. From its birth, America was built on blood, sweat, and bones of black people, indigenous people, and oppressed people. That's not drama. That is real history. But white supremacy isn't just about hoods and swastikas. It is about power. And who holds this power? Who control the wealth, the media, the land, the law, its system, and the system made Trump possible. And that system is why January 6th happened. That system is why black lives still don't matter in courts, in the economy, and in politics. So David K. Johnston said it plainly, okay? It is a plain truth. Trump is not a disease. He is a symptom of the rot. He is the product of decades of white rage, entitlement, and fear of losing dominance. Okay? Trump did not come out of nowhere. Trump did not come out of nowhere. That one man suddenly brought chaos, division. He has brought destruction, the laws, policies that is against the minority. Trump didn't create this moment. He is a result of centuries of racism, white fear, and unchecked privilege. This professor studied Trump. And he said this: if you ignore history, if you ignore the truth, and reward con artists, this is what you get. White supremacy, nationalism, ignorance, all these forces didn't start with Trump. He simply knew how to write them. He knew how to speak their language. He is the mirror reflecting what white America represents. You get me? If you are watching this, remember one thing. Don't fear the truth. Don't fear the fail of broken system, because when the lie collapses, the truth rises. And the truth is this: Trump is a loud alarm, but white supremacy is the fire. It is time to put it out. I love how Black Americans are building the ships. If America drown, you save. Thank you for watching my video. Share and let the truth echo far and wide.